The courtroom was tense with anticipation as Representative Jasmine Crockett stepped into the witness box. Dressed in a crisp navy suit, her shoulders squared and gaze steady, she looked every bit the confident and capable lawmaker who had made waves in Washington for her fierce advocacy and fearless voice. But this time, she wasn't standing on a debate floor or delivering a fiery speech on cable news. She was under oath, summoned to testify in a case involving a major corruption scandal that reached deep into Texas's infrastructure contracts. Judge Ronald Mercer presided over the case, a man known as much for his snide remarks as his long-standing reputation for judicial arrogance. His courtroom was his kingdom, one where his word was rarely challenged. Jasmine knew this reputation well, but she had no intention of shrinking in the face of disrespect. As the prosecutor began questioning her about the investigative reports she'd helped uncover, documents revealing an elaborate kickback scheme involving state contractors and public officials, she responded with clear, well-articulated answers. Her knowledge of the case was razor-sharp, and her delivery confident. But the moment she began to elaborate on a timeline of suspicious financial transfers, Judge Mercer interrupted. "Let's stick to the facts, Ms. Crockett," he said, his voice cutting through the room like a blade. "We're not here for a TED Talk." A few uncomfortable chuckles echoed through the gallery. Jasmine glanced at the judge, unfazed. "I believe I am stating facts, Your Honor. These details are relevant to the chain of events." Mercer cut her off again. "Perhaps if you spent more time studying the rules of evidence and less time chasing headlines, you'd know how to conduct yourself in a courtroom." A gasp came from the gallery, followed by murmurs. The court reporter's fingers froze on the keyboard for a brief moment before catching up. Jasmine held her ground. "With all due respect, Your Honor," she said slowly, her voice even, "I am not here for headlines. I'm here because I was subpoenaed to provide testimony crucial to a federal corruption case, testimony I spent months helping to gather because the system failed to catch it." Mercer leaned back in his chair, smirking. "You politicians all think you're crusaders when you're just playing dress up with justice. Let's move on before your ego consumes the docket." That was the breaking point. Jasmine's expression hardened, her voice sharper now but still composed. "No, we won't move on. Not while you're demeaning a sitting member of Congress who is here doing her duty as a citizen and a public servant." "Careful," Mercer said, his hand reaching for the gavel. "You're approaching contempt. And you've already crossed the line of judicial misconduct," she shot back. "You've mocked my intelligence, minimized my role, and weaponized your position to insult me in front of a courtroom and a national audience. If this is how you treat me, a black woman in public office, then I shudder to think how you treat ordinary people who can't fight back." Silence. The entire courtroom froze. For a moment, it was as if even the walls had paused to listen. The gavel came down hard. "This testimony is over. I will not allow this courtroom to become a political circus," Mercer barked. "I didn't make it a circus," Jasmine replied coolly. "You did, the moment you decided your robe gave you permission to be a bully." As bailiffs stepped forward, unsure whether they were about to remove a witness or calm a situation, Jasmine gathered her notes and stepped down. She didn't storm out. She didn't raise her voice. But her message rang louder than any outburst could have. Outside the courthouse, a swarm of reporters awaited. The clip of the courtroom confrontation had already gone viral within an hour, the moment Judge Mercer mocked her in the composed yet fiery way she stood her ground. Social media exploded with support, hashtags like #StandWithJasmine and #JudicialBullying trending across platforms. But Jasmine wasn't interested in social media victories. As her legal team met with her quietly outside the courthouse steps, she turned to them and said, "File a formal complaint. Today wasn't just about me. It was about every woman, every person of color, every citizen who's ever been silenced in a courtroom by someone who forgot justice isn't a tool of power, it's a shield for the people." The fallout from the courtroom clash between Jasmine Crockett and Judge Ronald Mercer spread faster than anyone could have anticipated. Within hours, clips of the exchange flooded social media. Prominent politicians, civil rights organizations, and everyday citizens rallied behind Jasmine, applauding her poise and courage. But while the world buzzed about the drama, Jasmine quietly prepared for something far more impactful than a trending moment. She was ready to fight back through the very systems Mercer had once used to protect himself. Her legal team wasted no time. The formal complaint to the Texas Judicial Conduct Commission was filed within 48 hours, detailing not only Mercer's behavior during her testimony, but citing a pattern of bias, inappropriate conduct, and an abuse of power. Jasmine didn't just bring her own experience to the table, she brought receipts. Anonymous court clerks who had once worked under Judge Mercer came forward with alarming stories, private tirades in chambers, lewd remarks about women attorneys, and a running commentary of disdain for media-hungry politicians. One brave former clerk provided a sealed email chain where Mercer belittled Jasmine Crockett's prior legal work, mocking her past as a public defender and calling her a media puppet with no spine. More damning, however, were the internal court recordings unearthed by a whistleblower. In one, Mercer could be heard ridiculing Jasmine's accent and implying that her position in Congress was a result of identity politics, not merit. The recordings, previously archived and forgotten, were now front and center in an escalating scandal. As journalists dug deeper, other patterns emerged. Over a dozen cases presided over by Mercer showed signs of irregularities, particularly those involving minority defendants or women attorneys. Some rulings were inexplicably harsh, others unusually lenient toward wealthy business owners with known political connections. Jasmine's confrontation had become a spark, and now it was lighting up Mercer's entire judicial record like a match to dry paper. Then came the federal announcement. The U.S. Department of Justice launched an investigation into Mercer's conduct, prompted by allegations of obstruction of justice, abuse of power, and, to everyone's shock, potential bribery. A financial audit uncovered unusual banking activity, quiet deposits from LLCs tied to defense attorneys who had frequently appeared in Mercer's courtroom and won favorable rulings. Jasmine, meanwhile, remained composed but relentless. At a press conference days after the DOJ announcement, she addressed the growing storm. "This is no longer just about disrespect in a courtroom," she said, her voice firm. "This is about the erosion of integrity in our judicial system. A judge is not above the law, no matter how long he's worn the robe." In the following days, Mercer was suspended from the bench. His defenders grew quieter as more evidence surfaced. Legal analysts on television dissected his rulings and transcripts, while major newspapers ran front-page exposés on the culture of unchecked power in local courts. And then, it happened. Early on a Tuesday morning, federal agents arrived at Mercer's home with a warrant for his arrest. He was taken into custody, charged with multiple counts including obstruction of justice, judicial misconduct, and accepting bribes. The image of Judge Mercer, once smug behind the bench, now in handcuffs and led down courthouse steps, was broadcast around the world. It was a stunning fall from grace. Reporters hounded Jasmine for a reaction, but she offered only a brief statement. "This is not a victory for me personally," she said. It's a victory for accountability. For every lawyer who's ever been silenced in court, for every citizen who thought justice wasn't on their side. This is what happens when people speak up and the truth is louder than the system that tried to bury it. In the weeks that followed, her courage inspired a ripple effect. Other judges came under scrutiny. Court reform advocates used her story to push for stronger oversight and transparency in judicial conduct. Law students studied the case as a turning point in legal ethics. And Jasmine Crockett, once mocked in court for supposedly chasing the spotlight, had become a national symbol of integrity and fearless resistance. But Jasmine herself remained grounded. In a private interview months later, when asked if she ever imagined that moment in court would lead to such a monumental shift, she paused before answering.